Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. I've seen some entitled people in my time, but no one takes the cake quite like Sharon. I should have known she'd be trouble from the moment she moved into our apartment complex. From day one, she walked around like she owned the place, sticking her nose where it didn't belong. But I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was just overly eager to make friends in her new home. I soon realized I was dead wrong. Sharon's favorite pastime quickly became controlling the parking lot. She seemed to think her Mercedes gave her special privileges over the rest of us peasants with our Toyotas and Hondas. I once made the grave mistake of parking in her spot when I came home late from work one night. All the other spots were taken, so I didn't think much of it. Boy, was that a bad call. The next morning, I walked outside to find Sharon leaning smugly against my car, blocking me from getting in. "This is my spot," she announced. "I don't appreciate having my parking space stolen by inconsiderate neighbors." I tried to explain politely that the spots weren't assigned, but she refused to budge. "Listen here, missy," she snapped. "I pay good money to live in this complex, and I'm not about to have my parking privileges revoked by the likes of you." Realizing I wasn't going to win this one, I gave in and awkwardly maneuvered my car around her. But from that day on, I made sure never to cross Sharon again when it came to the parking lot. Most of us tenants quickly learned to just let Sharon have her precious spot and avoid the drama. That is until the fateful day the ambulance came. It started out like any other morning. I was running late for work as usual and rushed out to my car. As I walked outside, I noticed the ambulance parked haphazardly in the lot. The back doors were open, and two paramedics were unloading a man on a stretcher. Sharon's beloved Mercedes sat parked right behind the ambulance, blocking it in. Just then, I heard Sharon's shrill voice pierce the morning air. "What do you two think you're doing blocking me in like that? This is my parking spot!" The paramedics looked up in disbelief. One of them, a woman named Amanda, as I later learned, tried to explain the situation. "Ma'am, this was an emergency call. We had to park here to get to our patient." But Sharon would have none of it. She pointed an accusatory finger at the ambulance. "That hunk of junk is obstructing my vehicle. I need to get to my nail appointment in 20 minutes. Now move it at once." Amanda's partner, a tall, bald man named Dan, chimed in. "Sorry, lady, but we've got a medical emergency here. This man needs to get to the hospital stat. There was nowhere else for us to park. We'll move the ambulance as soon as we can." As if on cue, the man on the stretcher let out a pained groan, but Sharon was unmoved. "Do you know how hard it was for me to get this parking spot? I had to fight tooth and nail when I moved in to claim it. Find somewhere else to take your patient." My hands curled into fists at my sides. I couldn't stand by any longer while Sharon berated these paramedics for doing their jobs. "That's enough!" I yelled, marching over. "Let them take the man to the hospital. He needs help!" Sharon whirled around, eyes ablaze. "Stay out of this! These two idiots should know better than to block me in!" She turned back to the paramedics. "Now I'm going to give you to the count of 3 to move this ambulance before I call the police." Amanda and Dan exchanged a look of dismay. Clearly they weren't used to dealing with someone as unhinged as Sharon. Seeing the panic on their faces, I made a split-second decision. I pulled my keys out of my purse and stepped between Sharon and the paramedics. "Here," I said, shoving the keys at Amanda. "Take my car and move it. I'll deal with Sharon." Looking equal parts shocked and relieved, Amanda stammered her thanks. She grabbed my keys and rushed to move my car while Dan finished loading their patient into the back of the ambulance. Meanwhile, Sharon was fuming, spewing insults at me and the paramedics. I stood my ground, refusing to engage with her tirade. "You can threaten me all you want," I said evenly, "but I won't let you stop these paramedics from doing their job." "Who do you think you are?" Sharon snarled. "You have no right to tell me what to do with my parking spot." I crossed my arms. "It's not your spot. The paramedics had every right to park there in an emergency." Before Sharon could retort, I spotted Amanda hopping out of my now poorly parked car. "All set," she called. Without hesitation, she and Dan jumped into the ambulance and peeled out of the parking lot, sirens blaring. Sharon let loose a wordless shriek of frustration. When she turned her fury on me, I held up a hand. "Don't even try it," I said. "I'm calling the landlord and reporting you for harassing medical professionals. Your behavior was completely unacceptable." With that, I turned and strode away, leaving Sharon gaping after me. I called the landlord as soon as I got to my car and told him everything. To my relief, he was appalled at Sharon's actions and promised she would face consequences. A week later, I saw Sharon moving boxes out of her apartment as the landlord oversaw. I smiled and waved at her shocked face. "Have fun finding a new place to live," I called out. The landlord had rightfully evicted her for harassment. I learned later that the man the paramedics treated that day made a full recovery, thanks to their quick actions. As for Sharon, I hope she learned a valuable lesson. No parking spot is worth risking someone's life over. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Several years ago, I started working for a towing company. It's pretty much the only thing I know how to do besides painting cars, which has had a drastic impact on my health. The pay was decent, but we had to share trucks, and the boss believed he knew the best spots for us to sit to get the best calls. This detail will be important later. Several months into the job, I realized that I wasn't making the kind of money I should be making. So one evening, while I was sitting in a parking lot, I began researching the laws related to employees in similar positions. He was rather unpleasant, and the trucks had transponders to monitor if we left them idling with the air conditioner on a hot day or with the heat on a cold day. He always complained about something if the wheels weren't moving. During my research, I discovered that if he required us to sit in a specific parking lot, street, or any location of his choice, then we were entitled to an hourly wage, not just our commission. The technical term was engaged to wait. However, if he allowed us to roam freely while waiting for calls, we weren't entitled to hourly wages, and we were considered waiting to be engaged. I never mentioned this to him, but I started keeping track of my time. Another month or so passed, and he started nitpicking me for tiny, insignificant things that wouldn't typically matter, like leaving a soda can in the cup holder. He actually had a screaming fit about that. At this point, I was fed up with working there and had already found another job, so I decided it was time to put my plan into action. I called him and told him we needed to discuss my final wages, and we could meet at his convenience. When I entered his office, I presented my argument, explained the state law, and told him I expected to be paid for the hours I was on the clock, but not allowed to freely roam looking for work or do things of my choosing. He firmly stated that I wouldn't be paid for that time, as it was agreed upon when I was hired. I didn't bother to argue, as I had already planned my next step, so I took my final paycheck and left. The following Monday, I contacted the state labor board and presented my case to them. Needless to say, they were very interested in the situation. In the end, they reviewed his employment records and spoke to the drivers still working for him. When he received the bill for what he had to pay us all, it was too much for him to afford, so he had to sell the trucks, his boat, and the lot, eventually going out of business. I never received the full amount owed to me, only a fraction. But the satisfaction of knowing the law a little better than he did and watching it all crumble was pure bliss. The next one is a petty revenge story. We recently bought a new cat tower. We have 5 cats who play hard, and the old tower was definitely showing use. The cats had torn up the carpet and sisal, vomited in one of the cubes, and decapitated the hanging mouse whose name is Earl, because why not? We set up the new tower, and after asking around to our friends, we couldn't find anyone who wanted it. So we took it out to the curb to get rid of it. Large trash pickup was coming up, so we figured if anyone wanted it, they would have plenty of time to grab it before trash pickup. In our neighborhood, as long as the item is not on the curb for more than a week, you won't get cited for having trash in your yard. No big deal, right? Oh no, it's a big deal because Karen and Kevin have decided they want the tower. I work from home, but my office is in the back of my house. We have a Ring camera, and around 10 a.m. one morning, the doorbell rings. I am in a meeting with my boss, so I check the app, see that I don't know who these people, Kevin and Karen, are, and go back to my meeting. About 45 minutes later, the doorbell rings again. Now, I'm out of my meeting, and since I'm expecting packages, I check the app, see that it's the delivery guy, and then head out front to grab my packages off the porch. I hear the notification going off on my phone as I'm opening the door, and there stand Kevin and Karen with my packages in the cat tower. Kevin is holding my packages. Me. Can I help you? Kevin. We're interested in the cat tower. Me. Go for it, it's been left out for large trash. You can have it. May I have my packages, please? Karen. The carpet and the sisal on the tower are torn. I'm going to need you to fix that before we take the tower, and there is vomit on it. That needs to be cleaned as well. Me. I'm not going to fix anything on the tower. We are throwing it away. If you want the tower, take the tower. If not, it will be picked up later this week with large trash. Now, may I please have my packages? Kevin, obviously realizing I'm not concerned at all about the state of the cat tower. Well, we still want the cat tower. I'm just going to leave it on your porch, and we will come back with our truck this weekend and pick it up. He is still holding my damn packages. Me. That won't work for us. See, we are trying to get rid of the tower, and I don't want it on my porch, which is why it is on the curb. So if you want the tower and you aren't going to take it right now, I'm not going to hold it for you. Please give me my packages. About this time, my phone started ringing, and I needed to get back to work. But I wasn't going to leave without my packages. Just as I am about to get angry with these people, my retired military grizzled biker-looking neighbor pulls up in his pickup truck. He is a big pussycat, but is very protective of us, and especially our two daughters. My neighbor calls over to me and starts heading over to where we are standing on my porch. I guess Kevin got nervous, so at that point, he shoved my packages at me and then said, "We'll just leave the tower on the porch, and we will pick it up when we can." Yeah, that's not going to work for me. When Kevin and Karen walk off, I turn to my neighbor and asked him to help me carry the damn cat tower back down to the curb. A little while later, I had to run an errand, and when I got back, the stupid cat tower was back on my porch. Y'all, what the absolute stupid hell. My kid, F19, got back from class a little while later and asked why the cat tower is back on the porch. I told her the story, she rolled her eyes and groaned, and I went back to work. About 30 minutes later, she came into my office laughing. Me. "What did you do, MK?" "Took the cat tower back down to the curb." Me. "How? That thing is heavy as hell." MK. "It was really easy once I took it apart and put all the hardware in the Ziploc bag that accidentally fell into the trash can with the used cat litter. So if Kevin and Karen want the cat tower, it's still available. But they will have to go dumpster diving for the hardware." The next one is a malicious compliance story. I worked at an office about a 45-minute drive from my house, and I had a friend who worked in the office I would give a ride home to. It was on my way. I literally had to pass by her house to go to and from work, so it was no big deal. Well, a woman who worked in my office lived really close to her and found out about the arrangement and wanted in. She guilted my friend into asking me since it was on my way. I said okay. Well, at the same time, my late husband's car was in the shop, so I would make a detour to pick him up, and he's a giant of a man, 6'3", and could not physically fit in the back, so to make things easier, my friend would just sit in the back. Well, the other woman, known as Karen, was a big woman, not tall, but big. So on the way home, literally the first time she starts getting in the front, I explain to her she has to sit in the back. Well, we get to my husband's job site, and I park and text. She jumps out of the car and gets into the front. I tell her to go back and straight up says no because the seatbelt in the back is too tight. It hurts her chest. I tell her it's too bad she can get out of. She doesn't like it. Well, she gets out and goes to the back seat. My husband gets there and climbs in. I start the car and the seatbelt warning light is on and beeping. She has the seatbelt off. I say you need to put the belt on. I am. Met with a no. I can't. It's easier if she's in front. Well, I say you're in back. We're not going anywhere until the belt is on. She crossed her arms, like a child, and says, I guess we're not going anywhere. I tell her if she doesn't put the belt on, she can get out and walk home. With a nice bit of snark, she says, well, you better call me a taxi. That pissed off. And that's what I did. I called a taxi. She puts her belt back on, but I say, it's too late, get out. You have a taxi coming. I say you can get out of my car now, or the police will be happy to remove you. She gets out and her jaw almost hit the road as it drove away. Outside my friend, I never let anyone from work in my car again. The next one is an entitled people story. After selling my motorhome and SUV, I had the cash to buy our next car outright, and that's what I intended to do. I go find the car I wanted and go to the dealership to buy it. Test drive is great, car is great, I'm ready to get the deal done. First, I'm given the final price sheet with a $1,500 warranty I neither asked for nor was asked about. I tell him to take it off. I have to go through his sales pitch and fighting me on it. I win. I'm not getting their extra warranty when the car is still under the manufacturer's warranty anyway. Next, he gives me a form to get my details for a credit check. I tell him I'm not financing. He leans back with a big sigh like I'm being difficult. I ignore him. Do you want me to write a check and wait for it to clear to pick up the car, or do I need to get a cashier's check right now before the bank closes? He gets up and leaves. Great. 15 minutes pass, 30 minutes, I'm getting angry. He comes back with a manager and they both try to get me to finance. This is how you build credit. I already have a great credit score. You don't want to tie up this money. He tries to ask me some personal questions to make me scared to spend the money. Do you own a house? Do you have family who relies on you? I'm not playing this game. I have an emergency fund. I just want to buy the car. Personal check or cashier's? They leave. I'm made to wait again. I get this is their sunk cost fallacy scheme. The more time I waste trying to this done, the more likely I'll be to see it through. But I'm fed up. I get up to leave and he catches me on the way out. Are we doing this or what? I say. He's apologetic and lures me back to the negotiating room. Then he acts like I just killed his dog and says he lost the warranty money and now he's going to lose the financing money. I like you, I really do, but I've got to feed my kids like everyone else. Can you just work with me? The amount they give us for sales like this isn't even worth my time. It's ridiculous. I literally had to get up to leave again before he would finally take the check. I really should have walked out. Can you imagine being made to feel like an a-hole when you're buying a whole damn car? The next one is an entitled parent story. So context here. I'm F28 and had my daughter Ida 3 months ago, my wife F35 Taylor, my stepmother Mary 45, and stepbrother Tom 11. Tom and I weren't close until I was pregnant. During the pregnancy, he became really interested in me and the baby and actually became quite clingy and needy on me. I felt weird, but when I tried to retreat, Mary and my dad said I was being cruel and miserable and I had the chance to be a good sister but was being selfish and rejecting him. Along with the pregnancy hormones, it made me feel guilty, so I let him still come round a lot. Taylor has a chilled attitude, so has kept calm and just said she wants what I want, even though he has become resentful of her. I made it clear she was my wife and any disrespect to her would mean he had to leave. He became focused on my bump and was touching it all the time. Mary thinks he's autistic, but no doctor has ever diagnosed him. I had Ida 3 months ago and she's the best baby ever. She's so perfect and I've loved seeing my wife become a mother. She's a natural at it, and it's depend our love for each other. I've decided to breastfeed and then pump, so Taylor can use the bottle to feed as well. It's been going pretty smoothly and honestly, it's something that allows us to bond with Ida. Often Taylor will lay with me whilst I breastfeed and we will spend time together with Ida sleeping on my chest. Apparently Tom was very angry when he wasn't allowed into the hospital to see me or the baby, and he kicked off when we said only my mom and MIL were allowed over until 2 weeks postpartum. When they did come over, he kept touching Ida's face even though we had asked not to, as we are both in the medical profession, so don't want to expose our newborn to germs. When we had to get firm, Mary told us we were being horrible to a child and needed to stop. I had to feed, so went to the nursery, but he had followed, and when I started feeding, he came in and watched before I realized he was there, and he stared asking me questions about breastfeeding. That was fine, but he's been watching me feed whenever he comes over when I don't realize, and then whenever he's been near me, he started saying booby, and reaching for my boobs and saying he wants to try, and it's unfair, only Ida gets it. We've tried reminding him that he's a big boy and she's only a baby. But then last week I woke up from a post-feeding nap to find him lead on top of me with his hands and face on my chest area. When we tried telling Mary and my dad that this was getting out of hand, she said we were discriminating against his autism, and we just didn't understand that I was his special person he focused on, and I should be honored. I told her it had to stop as I was uncomfortable, and Mary said if I wanted him to stop, I would have to stop breastfeeding as it was cruel to tease him without. This is stupid, right? My boobs did get significantly bigger during my pregnancy, and have stayed that way after giving birth so I could see how he would notice them, but it still feels wrong. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.